Okay, so we are 1 more minute into the battle. It was a bit more action that turn. As you might have noticed, I took some of my infantry teams along the wall and I shuffled their position. Because one thing you might have gotten from one of my previous attempts at a TTP video, the real killing power in the Commonwealth squads, I mean, considering the fact that their small arms lack a bit of firepower in comparison to everybody else, is the 2-inch mortars. And what I want to do is, whenever I'm fighting the Commonwealth, I want to try to make it harder for them to call down 2-inch mortars on my guys. So you might have noticed I took all of my infantry teams and I shifted them from where they were a couple of action spots to the side, or even if it was just a single action spot. Basically, I want to constantly shift back and forth as long as I'm in cover to try to make it a little more difficult for the 2-inch mortars to target me. Also, I took some of I split 3rd Squad again, sent their A-team over here. for the submachine, because they have submachine guns, and the engagement range right up until the wire is pretty short. Some of the damaged teams that I managed to rescue, I'm sending them over here into the building where they can recombine into squads provided any of their brethren survive. As you can see, 3rd squad here, the A and the B team did manage to get back into my lines, so I sent them over here. They've recombined into 3rd squad, and that just increases their effectiveness slightly. And other than that, I've repositioned my defense over here, and as you would have noticed, my 120mm artillery is arriving, at least on this side it is. Now, at this point, I'm still not 100% sure whether or not it's going to arrive on both sides, or whether it's, let's take a look. Let's see, yes, firing 4 minutes. That still says busy, delivery less than 1 minute. I'm still hoping beyond all hope that that barrage will come in, because as you can see, there was a slight uptick in enemy fire coming from this sector over here. It makes me think that Bletchley Geek has begun to reinforce his frontline position here, and that maybe he's preparing to try to push through the orchard over here. I mean, as you can see, I'm certainly spread rather thin trying to fight him off, and even my relatively healthy teams, they took a single casualty to the team leader, and now these guys are booking it out of here. Like, they've had enough already, and I'm very thinly spread, and honestly, he could probably come blasting through here at any time. And since I saw the gap being blown in the wire over here, I just had to assume that he's pouring his infantry teams through the gap, and they're now coming up behind this stone wall and maybe even coming into the building over here. So we're going to hope that the artillery barrage arrives. I've reshuffled my defense as best I can. I think in the next turn, I think you'll see me pull 3rd squad out of here and send them over here to join the defense. But to be honest, we're very thinly spread. We have maybe a platoon, slightly more than a platoon available if you look at the formations. Or actually, there is not an information. There it is. I mean, 1st squad B team is dead completely. And other than that, some of them have taken casualties, some of them haven't. But we're very thinly spread. We're effectively a platoon trying to stand off what should be an entire infantry company, and the artillery is about to arrive. So the fight for Casa Fanella has basically reached its tipping point. I've already lost the objective itself, but the question now is, can I hold Bletchley Geek to the position that he's reached, or will he be able to mass for another attack against my defenses and move on to Casa Raposa? And the answer to that will come next time. Okay, bye.
Feueranforderung empfangen. Ende. Wirken. Ende.
So, with the arrival of both my off-map and on-map artillery, the battle for Casa Fanella has effectively come to an end. From now until the end of the battle, there will only be some minor skirmishing, a few pot shots here and there, but for the most part, enemy action against Casa Raposa, or any attempt at an attack coming through here, will effectively stop right up until the end of the battle. I guess it's not really a spoiler. Bletchley Geek did plan on renewing his attack through this area, but he never got that finished before the end of the battle. So, as of right now, this is how things stand. As you guys remember, my initial line of defense along this low stone wall was very quickly wiped out by massive small arms fire by Bletchley Geek's troops coming all the way up against my wire and through the gaps. The position in the house here was evacuated very quickly. It turns out being on the second floor of a building when you are surrounded on three sides by enemy teams is not a good thing. They took fire from all directions and ended up evacuating the house. My positions along the stone wall here were quickly overrun, and my guys evacuated back to this position here at the corner of another stone wall, where they were progressively mowed down by machine gun and Bren fire and Thompson fire until they got some mortars dumped on them by me, and that is basically, yeah, all these guys are going to be dead as soon as the mortars finish. I did manage to rescue a few teams from that first platoon, but by and large, I've lost almost an entire infantry platoon. But it did accomplish one very important thing, and it forced Bletchley Geek to stop when he reached my first line of defense. He did successfully cross this open ground. He did put his squads and his infantry teams up into the first line of my defense. However, he never made it past this road. All the way through here. He never made it past the road that delineated my first line. So, to that end, despite the fact that I've taken massive, comparatively massive casualties, because I have a whole infantry company with supporting weapons, so losing a platoon is not particularly huge. But to that end, while I did take rather heavy casualties, I know that I inflicted at least as much as I took in terms of the small arms action, especially when I managed to get behind this stone wall. We did inflict quite a few casualties with light machine guns and rifles and submachine guns from this position, and it was very hard for him to lay down fire against me, because as you can see, the trees in the orchard form a kind of natural barrier to either being seen or being fired at from various directions. So you can kind of, when you're fighting in an orchard like this, you can kind of work the angles and use the gaps between the trees as a fire lane, and then kind of protect yourself with the lines of trees on both sides. Especially given the fact that it came uphill. I do think that Bletchley Geek was renewing his attack, especially given the fact that a couple of infantry teams, maybe a squad, had moved across the road and gotten behind this stone wall. I think Bletchley Geek, he can confirm in the forum thread or something. I think he was working on renewing his attack, maybe down this line of the stone wall over here on the left. And I know for a fact that he blew the wire in the middle of the map over here. I think what he was planning on doing with that was moving up and occupying the house and strong pointing it for use in pushing more infantry teams through this orchard here. But he can confirm or deny on his own time. But for the most part, the battle for Casa Fanella and Casa Raposa is over. Bletchley did successfully secure Casa Fanella, but Casa Raposa will remain out of his reach. And to that end, I think my defense on this side of the map has been rather successful. And in fact, later on, you will see I even managed to pick it apart a little bit and scavenge a few squads and go out and do some other actions. But that'll be all for now. Next, we're going to look at the sequence of events in the fight for Casa d'Antonio. This will require us to go back in time a little bit, but as always, these things happen. As you can see, there's quite a lot of contact markers surrounding it, and yet Casa d'Antonio itself still remains free of enemy troops. And there's a very good reason for that, and we'll cover that in greater detail at a later date. Anyway, hope you like this AAR, and I'll see you some other time. Okay, bye. Alright, so I had Bletchley Geek, he posted on the forums the kind of his initial impression. He posted his force purchase, and he posted his initial plan and his initial expectations. One thing that Bletchley Geek said that surprised me is he expected me to have a picket line of teams, or like scattered teams or something, all the way out here in front of, right behind this road out here. He expected to have contact both here and in the big ditch in front of the objectives. I mean, I know it's a later turn. I've turned off the icons, so there's not too many spoilers. He expected contact in several places way out in front of the objectives. And to be honest, that rather surprised me that he would expect something like that. But it does account for one very important thing, and that is we started this battle with 2 hours on the clock, and we are now at the 1 hour and 28 minute mark. And this is the turn that we had first contact around Casa Fanella. So he spent, what is it, 32 minutes? 32 minutes using bounding Overwatch to cross sections of the map over here that he thought had my troops in them, but in reality they did not. So one thing that you can always note whenever you're playing against a human opponent is the time clock factor. You can either try to run out the clock by ambushing them or forcing them to rethink their plan, or you can, in my case, have your defenses so far back that the enemy has no idea where you're actually set up until he meets you. Just a thought. Anyway, I'll talk to you later. Okay, bye.